Hello, friends, this is Jason, your favorite storyteller, and I'm back to bring you another story that will make you go sorry what. I hope you're somewhere cozy because we're diving right in. God, that was incredible. You about killed me, Peter said, rolling off me. You like that, huh? I said, in my best vampish voice. Even better than your wife? I asked, coyly. Ducking air right. She hasn't rocked my world like that ever. Well, maybe when we first hooked up. Yeah, I'll bet, I thought. I involuntarily turned partway to look towards the table in the corner where my purse was, and a sly smile crossed my face. I wasn't worried, my long blonde hair cascaded around my face. You vixen. Peter got up and walked into the bathroom. I heard him pissing in the toilet as I quickly jumped up and started getting dressed. You better grab a shower before you head out, don't want wifey to smell me on your body when you get home. I grabbed my purse and turned my phone off. What about you? He called out. You going to have time to clean up before Rob gets home? Don't you worry about that. No chance of my husband finding out. I had my shoes on and was reaching for the doorknob when Peter said, Hey, see you tomorrow at the gym. Yeah, usual time, for sure. Not, I thought, and said, see ya. With that I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. Had anyone been outside, they would have noticed my whole demeanor change as I quickly walked to the parking lot. I hopped in my Challenger, removing the small gold wedding band that had been on my ring finger, and tossing it in the cup holder. Won't be needing that anymore. I leaned back in the car seat and took a deep breath. Finally, I thought, that's over. Well, only one more thing to do. Now I need to go home and really take a shower and cleanse my soul as well as my body. What's going on here, you're wondering? Well, it all started 3 years ago. 3 years earlier, I was in my senior year of college, actually my 5th year, but that was because I had taken a year abroad for an internship. It was spring and I was chilling after class when my brother Will called. Hey bro, what's up? There was what sounded like a sniffle, then Will's soft, broken voice, Lindsay left me. What? I said sharply. Yeah, she left. She's been having an affair with a doctor at work, and I guess she decided to trade up. That witch. I always knew there was something I didn't like about her. I just thought it was because we were so different. Damn. And you had no idea. God, I was pissed. No, I mean, things seemed a little off, and she wasn't happy with the amount of time I'd been putting in at work, but I thought we were okay. She worked shift work at the hospital, and this project at work could have a real payoff. I guess we weren't seeing enough of each other, and she found someone else. Oh, Will. I'm sorry. Do you want me to come up for the weekend? We can hit Georgetown and just go crazy for a night. Christy, thanks, but I wouldn't be good company right now, and with the weather getting nice, you're going to want to run down to Virginia Beach. I know that's why you picked William and Mary and not Yuva. Will chuckled. Far enough from home, but not too far. Just like me. Yeah, we both grew up in Virginia in the Charlottesville area, and with all the great universities here, it made no sense to go out of state. Of course, neither of us wanted to go to Yuva, being right there in town near the folks. Mom and Dad were glad to see us fly out of the nest, but stayed close enough that we paid in-state tuition. Will and I were unusually close, especially given the fact that we were 4 years apart in age. I think we really got close when he graduated from high school and was leaving for college. I was a gangly, awkward 13, almost 14-year-old starting high school next year, and unsure of myself and about to be the only child in the house. I was going to miss him terribly. That first year Will texted, emailed or called me at least a couple of times a week. I'm not sure if it wasn't as much for his mental comfort as for me though. I had the usual teenage, adolescent insecurities and angst, and Will helped me through those years. By the time I was 16 I had jumped all into the goth thing, dyed my blonde hair black, wore dark makeup, black clothes, etc. Sometimes I even shaved one side of my head, or had a faux mohawk, no piercings or tattoos though. Mom and Dad were pretty cool about the whole thing, probably because I got good grades, didn't act up or misbehave, and certainly didn't do drugs. I just dressed weird and listened to, well, music they didn't. Despite the goth attire, or maybe despite, or because I always had a cherry attitude, I was moderately popular, and even had a boyfriend. Surprisingly, Matt wasn't so much into goth as he was into studying, and getting good grades like me. That said, it was only a matter of time before things were going to get physical, and I was conflicted about that. This was the first relationship for both of us, and I think we were a little overwhelmed and afraid. Will must have picked up on this from our conversations, and one day he flat out asked me if Matt was pressuring me. I said no, but I was all mixed up about the idea of sex. God, I can't believe I just told Will. That's when Will told me something I thought was perceptive, and it helped me a lot. Christy, look, I'm sure your body is saying yes, but maybe your mind is saying I don't know. that's okay. Just make certain that your first time is with someone you really love and that you're not just giving in to the moment. Even if it doesn't last, your first time should be with someone you'll always think fondly of. Oh, and I don't want to know anything. He laughed. But I could tell he meant what he said and was concerned for me. And if the guy's a jerk, I can beat him up for you. Thanks, Will, that helps. I promise I'll keep that in mind. Love you. I remember hanging up the phone and thinking how lucky I was to have a big brother like him. That was the year Will met and started dating Lindsay. Oh, he had girlfriends in high school, and I knew he dated different girls in college, but this was different. Will and Lindsay met during his junior year at Virginia Tech. He was studying engineering and physics, and she was in nursing. Over spring break, Will brought her home to meet the folks, and me of course. She seemed nice enough, and our folks liked her, me a little less so. Of course, Will was smitten, and it appeared to be mutual. It sounds so trite, but I always thought there was something about Lindsay I didn't like. Maybe it was our age difference, or my goth attire, but she pretty much ignored me. I could never figure out what it was. I knew there was something about Lindsay that just seemed off. But I just shrugged it off dismissively, and figured it was not my problem. Meanwhile, Matt and I eventually did the deed. We had both turned 18 that February of our senior year, and could sign ourselves out of school. One gorgeous spring day we bailed and had gone hiking. We had stopped to rest and drink some water. Matt opened his backpack and pulled out a sandwich and some Oreos, and handed them to me. Made you a PBJ, just the way you like them. I always put peanut butter on both pieces of bread, so the jelly doesn't make them soggy. And I love Oreo cookies. I think that was the moment I knew. This guy got me. If this wasn't love, it was damn close. We finished our hike and went home. Matt dropped me off at my folks' house and was going to his house. We both needed a shower and were going to an early movie later. I got out of the shower and called Matt to come pick me up. But the movie isn't for another 2 hours. I know, but there's something I need to do first, so just come over as soon as you can. I knew my folks wouldn't be home for hours, and I didn't want my first time to be in the back of a car parked somewhere in the woods. It was going to be in my own bed, and I wanted it to be special. No details other than to say we both were satisfied. To this day, I still have fond memories of that day. Senior year, Will and Lindsay got engaged. They both had jobs lined up starting that summer after graduation, working in the Northern Virginia area right outside of DC. The guy Will knew from school basically recruited him to come work for a startup. They had several small contracts and funding for a project that hopefully would pay off in a few years, and he was getting in on the ground floor. Lindsay got a job in the cardiac unit at a major hospital in Fairfax. They were already living together, and a year later they got married. They even bought a house that was a distressed sale due to the economy. Ashburn was a suburb of DC that used to be farm fields and dirt roads 35 years ago, but now was a metro stop on the Silver Line. Progressa. Meanwhile, I had gone off to William and Mary, studying communications and international policy. By then I had softened my gothness somewhat, although I still dyed my hair black and wore dark clothes most of the time. Those couple of years I didn't see Will or Lindsay much as they were busy with life and work and me with school. Oh sure, I went home for the holidays, but Will and Lindsay would alternate going to her family for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and I just never got to really know her. I guess in Lindsay's eyes I was still the weird little sister. By the time my junior year rolled around I was feeling confident in school and life, was dating a cute soccer player, and had even started wearing clothes with color. I guess it was at the beginning of spring semester, my advisor asked me to stay and walk with him after class. Christy, I do some consulting for a company that has an internship program that I think you'd be a good fit. It would mean putting off graduation for a year, but I think the experience would be great for you, and would position you for a good job in the future. Of course, you'd be living in Europe, most likely France, but traveling around most of the EU. The company is Lantex, and they provide support to a lot of the US military, as well as the NATO nations. You'll be basically a glorified gopher for my college roommate as he travels around the continent, but if you pay attention and work hard, I can guarantee you'll learn a lot. I was momentarily speechless, and then said, I guess I have to say yes. Thank you. I had broken up with Scott, the soccer player, that spring, as our relationship had pretty much run its course, so I had nothing holding me back. Mom and Dad didn't take much convincing, especially since they'd not be paying for that year abroad. Even though it was an internship, I would be getting a salary as well as housing. That May, after classes were over, I spent a week at home packing and saying goodbye to my friends. Then it was off to Dulles Airport for my flight to Paris. Even though he was busy working, Will slipped out to say goodbye and see me off. The year seemed to pass by in a flash. I was a little overwhelmed at first, and my high school quality French was embarrassing, but I quickly became fluent. I also picked up a bit of German and Italian. Every other week it seemed we were off to another city: Berlin, London, Barcelona, Rome. I think I got as much or more of an education in history and art as I did in business and policy. I did call home regularly, and of course Will texted and emailed like always, although not as frequently, as he was busy with work and seemed somewhat distracted. I flew home in August, just a week prior to classes for my senior year. Mom, Dad, and even Will were all there at the airport to greet me. It took them a couple of extra seconds to even recognize me as I walked out of the customs area. Not only was I not wearing black, but I had let my blonde hair grow out and stopped dyeing it black. God, look at you all professional looking, Will smirked. It's good to see you. Lindsay would have come too, but she's pulling a 12-hour shift. My senior year was a blur of classes, papers, and even some fun. My advisor told me he had heard nothing but raves about my performance in Europe, and that a position was available for me in Norfolk if I was interested. It was spring and graduation was just a few weeks away that day when Will called me to tell me about Lindsay leaving. We spent many hours on the phone over the next several weeks. The witch was cheating on me. She hooked up with some doctor at work. Evidently, they were not being too discreet, and someone saw them. I guess they were about to be outed, and she decided to break the news first before I found out. Lindsay said she was tired of being home alone, that I worked too much. Well, yeah, she knew this startup was going to take a lot of my time. And she's gone a lot to working shift work at the hospital. Well, did you guys try to do stuff together at least sometimes? I asked. Yeah, that's what's funny. We used to go for bike rides on the W and Odd, and go for hikes every few weeks. It's not like I didn't have a life outside of work. The real problem was she wanted more than we have, and she wanted it now. I mean, yeah, we have this house, but there's no equity in it right now. In fact, if we sold it, we'd probably have to bring money to the closing. That's why Lindsay isn't fighting me over the house. She wants out and it'll only take 6 months for the divorce, so she's signing the house over to me. I felt awful for Will. I wanted to tell him I never really cared for Lindsay, but I was afraid that would come off like I was judging him for his poor judgment, so I just kept my mouth shut and listened. Eventually he seemed to be doing all right and wasn't too depressed. Will was always an upbeat guy, and he even joked about the situation a few times. You know why divorce costs so much? Because it's worth it. Will laughed. And actually, it didn't cost me much at all, at least financially. Emotionally, yeah, I was a basket case for a month or so, but now I see that I'm fine. I had worried about his mental state for a few months, but I could see that my brother was bouncing back just fine. I ended up getting a job with a subcontractor that did work for land tax in the Norfolk area. They dealt closely with the Navy base there, the largest in the world. I found an apartment in Virginia Beach and spent a lot of time on the beach running or swimming in the ocean. Will even got away one weekend to visit and we hit the bars hard one night. God, what did we do last night? Will was laying on my couch and looked like I felt. We did too many shots of tequila. I can't even remember the last time I got that drunk. Oh yeah, the weekend what's her name left me. I had been there about a year and a half when my supervisor called me one day. Christy, you've been doing a great job here, and I think you're ready to move on. There is a position coming up in the Northern Virginia office I think you should apply for. You'd be liaison with the military as well as interfacing with the budget committees in Congress. It sounds interesting, but tell me more. Moving to Nova means dealing with traffic, to say nothing of fewer beach days. Well, the good thing is the office is in Crystal City near the metro, and you can commute on the subway when you must go into DC. Didn't you tell me your brother lives in Ashburn? That's near a metro stop too. You might never have to drive. I thought about it and even made a trip up to visit Will. I wasn't wild about giving up being so near the beach, but the metro was pretty user-friendly, and the Washington area has a lot to offer. Museums, social life, outdoor activities. Hell, I could go to the beach in a few hours, boating on Chesapeake Bay, hike at any number of parks within driving distance. The bid came up a few months later. I applied and was selected. I had to wait 2 more months to work out the logistics, process the paperwork, and train my replacement. I had talked to Will about moving in with him, and he thought it was a great opportunity for me, and was enthusiastic about having me living there. It'll be great to have you here, not that I'll see much of you. Will chuckled. I pretty much live at the office and lab, but we're making a lot of progress. Will, I expect you to find some time to have dinner with me occasionally, and I plan to drag your sorry butt out for some exercise too. I moved into Will's house, and we quickly settled into a routine. I found that I could commute on the metro for the most part, even when I had to go into DC. My work was interesting, and I met a lot of the players involved in decision making. I'd usually take the metro, but sometimes I'd fire up my Challenger if I thought I'd want to go somewhere after work. I could see Will was doing alright now. He wasn't dating anyone, in fact seemed to spend way too much time at work, but when he was home, he actually relaxed, and sometimes we hang out and watch a movie. One night we started talking about life and he asked if I was seeing anyone. Not really, I'm still getting settled in and just want to absorb things. I could use a good roll in the hay though, it's been a while. Will spewed a mouthful of beer at that. I did not need to know that. And warn me if you bring a guy home. I don't care if you're an adult, I don't need to hear my sister having sex. Same goes for you bro, in fact I think you need to get laid. I know there must be women out there looking for a guy like you. That whole back on the horse thing. Yeah, I do need to work on getting my social life back in balance. I'm still puzzled as to how things just blew up. What did I do or not do? What did I not see in Lindsay's personality that might have been a clue? Or is she just not a nice person? We both shrugged, and decided Will would never know exactly what went on in Lindsay's head, and drove her to bail. I felt Will had recovered well from the pain of the divorce, and the very public actions of Lindsay's leaving. That said, knowing my brother as well as I did, I could see the hurt occasionally flare up, and I ached for him, wishing I could make things better. One Saturday that fall, I was out for a run with Anna, a coworker who lived in Fairfax. We were running through a nearby park, and there was some weekend fair happening. We had taken a break and were walking along when this guy handed us each a flyer. Hey ladies, check out our gym. Newly renovated weight room. Indoor pool. And with this flyer you can get a free 3-month membership. Close to the metro, and a hospital. What the hell I thought, I could use somewhere to work out, as Anna and I started running again. She threw hers in the first trash can we passed, and then it hit me. I stopped running, and walked back to the trash can. What are you doing? Anna asked, as she jogged back. I grabbed the flyer she had tossed out of the can. Will. He needs to start working out. This is perfect. But that wasn't what I was really thinking. We continued running and I started thinking about how Lindsay had really screwed him over and hurt him. A few days later I went to the gym after work and signed up. The gym was near a metro stop that was about halfway between work and Will's house. It really was state of the art, and I thought if nothing else, at least I'd get in better shape. I also had been toying around with an idea I had. A way to dole out some pain and hurt to people who had crapped on my brother. That night I sat down at the computer and typed up my own flyer. Basically, it was a note saying that the flyer was being mailed to a select number of random addresses in the area, to promote good health and fitness. I typed up an envelope with Doc Aswip's address, stuffed the flyers in, and popped it in the mail. Now to wait and see. It was about a week later, and I was hitting the squat rack when I saw Marcus, the head trainer, walking through the gym, obviously showing Dr. Aswip around. I just kept working out, jamming out to the stones in my earbuds. I did notice that Aswip snuck a few glances my way. I had started going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, usually after work, and I was certain that sooner or later Dr. Aswip was going to show up. Especially since I knew he worked regular hours at the hospital. I knew I was reasonably attractive and fit. I had never packed on extra weight over the years, and after I left my goth phase behind, I grew my blonde hair out, and would put it in a ponytail that came down past my shoulder blades. I had even learned how to do some light makeup that highlighted my eyes. That, and a little lip gloss, and I thought I looked pretty good. If I was into women, I'd do me. Sure enough, the following week I saw him, and I must be honest, he did have a pretty hot bod to go with his charming good looks. I had read his bio on the hospital website, and he had been a competitive swimmer in college. Well, this might not be totally distasteful. For the next couple of weeks, we overlapped 3 or 4 times in the gym, each time me just minding my business, and concentrating on lifting. I was aware though that I had an audience. Especially since there didn't seem to be too many women working out when I was there. And the few that were, well, let's just say they really needed to be there working out. Finally, I decided that enough bait had been cast, it was time to set the hook. I had bought a simple plain gold wedding band and wore it on my ring finger. I didn't wear a lot of jewelry, so it took getting used to, especially as I would only wear it at the gym. I figured if nothing else it might keep most of the male population from hitting on me. But hopefully not one particular male. I made certain my workout attire was just a tad bit skimpier and tighter than usual that day. I was doing bench presses as Aswip walked nearby. I grunted and pretended to struggle with the bar. In a second, he was there to assist me by grabbing the bar and taking some of the weight, so I could finish my press. Phew. Thank you, I said, as I sat up and swiveled around. No problem, we can't have you crushing your windpipe and strangling yourself. Then I'd have to really save you. God, he's so full of himself, I thought. Hi, I'm Peter, and you are? Well, he was somewhat charming. For a snake that is. Tracy, I said, as I looked him right in the eyes, and held the look for just a second longer than necessary. Nice to meet you, Tracy. You come here a lot, don't you? I know I've seen you a few times. Yeah, but I think I overdid it today. Sometimes I wish I had a workout partner, but my husband's busy with his new job, and I don't really know anybody here. Oh, you just moved? Peter asked. We did. We're staying with my sister-in-law and her husband, and it's kind of crowded there, so I try to get out of the house as much as possible. Wow, that's got to be hard adapting to a new place, and not knowing anyone other than family. What do you do to keep yourself occupied? I usually come here in the afternoon to work out. I need a break after studying for the LSAT all day. And I really need to get out of the house sometimes. It just gets a little close, and I don't see much of my husband, which is another issue. I sighed. Well, thanks for the spot. I turned to walk to the locker room. Maybe I'll see you around. I was in the gym 2 days later when I saw him walk in. He quickly scanned the room and made a beeline for the weight rack where I was getting ready to do some curls. Hey, still no workout partner? Nah, and I'm getting tired of the same old routine. I pouted a little. Well, then let me rescue you from your misery, and we'll kick the blues to the curb. Peter flashed his toothy smile as he looked at me. You're here most afternoons, aren't you? Yeah, especially now that my sister-in-law is working from home. Great, then workout partners will be. Peter gave me a toothy smile as he picked up a weight. Well, that would be nice, but didn't you say you're a doctor? Don't you work all kinds of crazy shifts, day and night? I used to, back when I was a poor, struggling intern, but now I pretty much work normal hours, so it looks like you're stuck with me as your partner. He smiled. Unless of course you don't want me. Okay, I think I could get used to having a regular partner. It's so hard to meet people here around DC. Everyone's so busy all the time. I hardly ever see my husband. I'm not sure I even remember what he looks like. I swear Peter got a gleam in his eyes when I said that. Hope I wasn't too obvious. I went out that evening and got a burner phone. I had a feeling it was going to come in handy. Sure enough, it was only a couple of days later Peter asked for my number. We started meeting up on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and truthfully, it was good to work out with someone. I'd never been much into spending time in the gym. I'd rather be doing something outside. This was different though. I was playing a long game. Sure enough, it only took 3 or 4 days at the gym before he started working on me. It seemed innocuous enough, but I knew better than to think it was innocent. There were the little touches that weren't necessary for that exercise, and of course they lasted just a bit longer. And the comments about how good looking I was as well as being smart studying for law school. The second week of our partnership started to get a little more personal. So, does hubby mind you coming to the gym with all these guys here and working out with me? Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't told him. Rob's been really busy with work, and we don't see much of each other. This new job has really been a ball buster, and he's trying hard to make a good impression. I grunted as I lifted a 45 pounds weight onto the squat rack. What about you? You're married, right? Yeah, well you never know, so given that we don't see each other much. She's a nurse that works 12-hour shifts and doesn't want to do anything after work. Peter stepped back from the squat rack and looked at me. Sometimes I wonder why we even got married. Will and I were lounging around the house a few days later, and he seemed to be in a bit of a funk. What's up, bro? I asked as I passed him the beer. Aw, just feeling a bit bah humbuggy today. Will looked thoughtful for a minute. Yeah, I was wondering why you were home at a halfway decent time. I ran into one of Lindsay's friends today. She told me Lindsay's pregnant. I guess it sucks because now's about the time we would have been talking about starting our family. Hey look, at least you guys didn't have kids. Things would suck even worse if you had, and now had to be part-time parents. Yeah, there's that to be thankful for. Will got up and went to his study. I've got to do some work, I just didn't feel like working late this afternoon. Well, that's a bit of news that makes me rethink my plan. Or maybe not. Truthfully, at this point I think karma is going to hit a home run. Peter texted me the next day and said he was going to be a little late for the gym. I didn't really mind as I was still debating whether to continue my plan. I guess I'll play it by ear and see if things play out the way I suspect without me really doing anything overt. I was pushing hard on the elliptical machine when I noticed Peter's reflection in the mirror on the wall. He was standing behind, obviously checking out my rear end. I was still deep in thought when he showed up and said, "Hey, do you mind if we just stretch and talk a while?" Yeah, that would be fine, I said. I've got a lot on my mind, and I'm having trouble getting motivated today. We wandered over to the lounge area and grabbed a couple of bottles of water from the cooler. Peter looked at me and asked, "Are you happy?" Sometimes I see you exercising hard, and you look like you're trying to work something out. Like something's bothering you and you wish your life was different. I don't know, I guess with all the studying I'm doing, and never seeing Rob these days, I just shrugged and looked down. This is it, he's going to push things. I know what you mean. I've been having a rough week and really could just use a friend to talk to. Peter hesitated, then said, hey, let's skip the workout and run down the street to a coffee shop, and just hang out for the afternoon. Well, I have been working out a lot lately, even when you weren't here to push me. I hesitated, trying to play it cool. Sure, let's go. We headed out and Peter started chatting as we walked down the street. Thankfully the coffee shop turned out to be a quirky little independent, not a bloody Starbucks, which meant it wasn't crazy busy. You know, I'm really glad we've hit it off and everything, Peter said as we ordered. Iced chai for me, an espresso for him. Oh, why is that? I said flirtatiously. Peter looked at me sheepishly, or maybe it was an act. I just feel, I don't know. Like there's a connection between us, and not just because we're gym rats. He looked me in the eyes as he took a sip from his cup. Yeah, it's an act. He's so full of sheep. I wonder when he's going to make his move. Peter reached across the table and took my hand. I'm serious. The past few weeks have been the best I've had in over a year, and I think it's because of you. I had been feeling kind of blah in my life, and now I feel like getting up in the morning knowing we'll meet up, and everything just looks brighter. I so wanted to just barf, but I played along. Long game, you know. Oh God, I exclaimed. And here I thought I was the only one that felt like that. I've been going crazy feeling so out of sorts and alone and empty. And that's why I started going to the gym. And then you came along and Jesus, did I just say that? I sounded like one of those valley girls from the 80s. I put my hands over my face and tried to look like I was on the verge of crying, all the while trying not to laugh. Peter got up and came around the table and sat next to me, putting his arm around me. Tracy, it's okay, things will be fine. I think both of us have needed this, whatever this relationship is. And with that he leaned in and kissed me. Much as I wanted to laugh, I suppressed it and returned his kiss, albeit not quite as enthusiastically as him. I really needed to get home and have dinner with Will, so I dried my eyes, thanked him for understanding me, and promised I'd see him at the gym in a couple of days. That night Peter texted me. Hope we're okay. I replied, yeah, Ty. Seeing you makes my day happy emoji. Wish I could see all of you flirty emoji. Me. Maybe. Flirty emoji. I turned off my phone after that. Of course, the next day when I turned in on driving to work, it blew up with a dozen or so more texts. I was getting a sense that Peter was going to make his play for me soon, and I was starting to grapple with the thought that I was going to sleep with a married man. Not something I ever thought I would do, but then I reminded myself that his wife screwed my brother over, and he was a scumbag. Karma coming for you, motherfuckers. I really did have reservations about what I was doing. I had always adhered to Will's advice about who to sleep with and when. It had always served me well. I still had some fingers left over when counting my number, and all of them had treated me nicely. As I had with them. Sure enough, 2 days later at the gym, I was well into my routine when Peter came up to me still in his street clothes. You being a slacker today? I teased. No, I just have something better in mind. Ooh, and what might that be? I asked as I put down the weights. I was thinking we should stop beating around the bush. There's obviously some chemistry between us, and I think it's time we find out just how much. If you catch my drift. Wink, wink. I sat up and faced him. Yeah, I was thinking about you and wondering if I was going to see you today. I looked down and nervously twisted my ring. It felt good when you kissed me the other day and I liked it. Well, maybe we should explore those feelings somewhere in private. My buddy Steve has a condo nearby that he lets me use when he's out of the country. Sometimes I crash there when I get called into the hospital in the middle of the night. I think we can explore those feelings there. I looked at Peter and had to stifle a laugh. This is how you get women to jump in the sack with you. Wow, they must really be stupid. Guess I'll play along. I don't know. We shouldn't. I just am so tired of feeling alone and I miss feeling connected. Peter put his arm around me and said, I know exactly how you feel. Being lonely in a relationship is worse than being alone without a relationship. Oh brother, now he's quoting some relationship garbage, even if it is true. And that leads us to today. I had a hard time concentrating at work today, knowing that my plan was about to come full circle. I had dressed up a bit for work today. It's hard to strike the balance between sexy hot and professional dressy, but I think I pulled it off. Of course, changing out of my flats into a pair of spike heels, and unbuttoning the top button on my blouse, did a lot to effect a change. I also had my hair down and curled. I was driving my Challenger. I wanted control of the situation so I could leave if I felt the circumstances were right. Pulling over a few blocks from Steve's condo, I sat there for a few minutes. I was about to do something part of me knew was wrong, and violated my personal code of ethics, but I also needed to balance the karma scales of justice. At this point I wasn't certain how this was going to play out. I saw Peter's car in the lot, and I parked a few spaces away. I slipped my wedding ring on my finger, and made certain my burner phone was in my purse. Peter must have been watching for me. He opened the door to the condo as I walked up the steps. God, you look amazing. I swear, Peter was practically drooling as he took in my appearance. I felt like he had just undressed me with his eyes right outside. Well, I just felt like dressing up today. It's been a long time since I felt sexy, and the text you sent me made me horny. I mentally crossed my fingers at that lie, hoping a lightning bolt didn't strike me down. He slipped his arm around me, pulled me close and leaned in to kiss me. He's a pretty good kisser, and I found I was getting turned on. Sometimes a body reacts on its own as if it knows it just needs a good ducking, and it had been a while for me. We made our way to the bedroom, and I excused myself to go to the bathroom. I peed, brushed my teeth and took a deep breath staring at my reflection in the mirror. Showtime, I said to myself. I activated the video record function on the phone and tucked it back in the outside pocket of my purse. Walking out into the bedroom, I strutted and sat my purse down on the sitting table in the corner at such an angle that the phone would see most of the action that was about to happen. I did insist on condoms. I can't take the chance of getting pregnant, hubby would kill me. Of course, I was more worried about picking up some sty. Who knows if he's ducking some other chick? Or if Lindsay is screwing around too. Yeah, I know, she's preggers, so probably not, but she's already cheated on one husband. Peter approached me and slowly tilted my head back and kissed me. His hands started roaming around and he began removing my clothes. Despite trying to control my feelings, I did begin to respond to his ministrations. I don't need to relate a blow-by-blow description of the afternoon's duckfest. Peter wasn't anything special, probably 6 inches, normal size, maybe a little thicker than some, but pretty unremarkable. At least based on my limited first-hand experience, so that wasn't the reason Lindsay left. When I decided to put this plan into action, I had seriously debated a long time about how I'd feel sleeping with Peter. On one hand, sleeping with a married guy is just wrong. I would never have hooked up with a married guy normally. And I wasn't sure how I'd feel about Peter if I didn't already know he was scum. Truthfully though, I think if I had met him under different circumstances and he asked me out, I would have dated him. Maybe not slept with him, but I did find him attractive and interesting. Other than being a cheating asshole. I also knew I needed to look like I was one mind-blowing, prime grade A piece of peach that ducked like nothing else in the world. I think I accomplished that. Peter didn't have any fancy moves, in fact, the sex was pretty routine and average. But still, I think this video is going to be a hit. And this is where we pick up from the beginning. God, that was incredible. You about killed me. Peter said, rolling off me. You like that, huh? I said, in my best vampish voice. Even better than your wife? I asked, coyly. Ducking airite. She hasn't rocked my world like that ever. Well, maybe when we first hooked up. Yeah, I'll bet, I thought. I involuntarily turned partway towards the table in the corner where my purse was, and a sly smile crossed my face. I wasn't worried, my long blonde hair cascaded around my face hiding my features. You vixen. Peter got up and walked into the bathroom. I heard him pissing in the toilet as I quickly jumped up and started getting dressed. You better grab a shower before you head out, don't want wifey to smell me on your body when you get home. I grabbed my purse and turned my phone off. What about you? He called out. You going to have time to clean up before Rob gets home? Don't you worry about that. No chance of husband finding out. I had my shoes on and was reaching for the doorknob when Peter said, hey, see you tomorrow at the gym. Yeah, usual time, for sure. Not, I thought, and said, see ya. With that I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. Had anyone been outside, they would have noticed my whole demeanor change as I quickly walked to the parking lot. I hopped in my Challenger, removing the small gold wedding band that had been on my ring finger, tossing it in the cup holder. Won't be needing that anymore. I leaned back in the car seat and took a deep breath. Finally, I thought, that's over. Well, only one more thing to do. Now I need to go home and really take a shower and cleanse my soul, as well as my body. A few weeks ago, I had looked in Will's phone for his contacts. I figured that even if Will deleted her number, when he restored it back up, the number would be put back in his contact list. It was. One day I called her number using my burner phone and got her voicemail. Still Lindsay's number. Going home I checked the video I had recorded, and it was even better than I thought. Peter was right, I was a vixen. More importantly, it was hard to tell who the blonde ducking Peter was. I wasn't really worried that she would recognize me. She hadn't seen me in years, and probably thought of me more as the goth kid she first met. I got in the shower and stood under the water for a good 20 minutes, and thought about what I had done. I scrubbed myself clean and washed my hair with shampoo and conditioner. While I had actually enjoyed the physical aspect of the sex, I needed to cleanse my mind of the afternoon. I guess I'm not really cut out to be a cold, calculating witch. Or at least not usually. I sat on my bed and took a deep breath. I was conflicted. I had done something that ran contrary to my morals and values. Like most people who justify bad behavior, I rationalized that the people who were going to suffer from my actions had brought it on themselves. And yes, I knew I would carry some guilt for some time. I also knew I could not tell Will what I had done. He would be disappointed in me, and while he may have a little schadenfreude when he hears about the fallout, at least he won't know the causes. Still, I typed in Lindsay's number, attached the file, and punched the send button. Will came home a little while later and found me sitting in front of the TV watching some mindless reality show. "Hey, you're home early, what do you want to do for dinner?" I wasn't in the mood for cooking, and Will had a limited repertoire of dishes. "We had a good test run today and I'm in a good mood. What say we go to McCain's for dinner, my treat?" We had a good time. It warmed my heart to see Will in a good mood. He was getting some balance in his life and was actually engaging in something other than work on a regular basis now. We had been going for bike rides most weekends and he was coming home at more normal hours. Still working 50 to 60 hours some weeks, but he seemed more settled. I never went back to the gym after that day. I didn't want to see Peter ever again, and since I had no reason to get off at that metro stop, I wasn't worried that I'd run into him. He had no idea where I actually lived or worked. I also felt like I needed to leave my Tracy personality behind forever. I cut my long hair and had it styled in a short modern look. It was about a week and a half later I came home from work one day, and Will was already home. I could tell he was in a good mood, and he looked at me grinning like a Cheshire cat. "You seem to be in a good mood. Did somebody die and leave you $1 million?" "Nope, but I'm not complaining. I ran into this woman, Julie, that was a friend of Lindsay's from their book club. Seems all is not wonderful with Dr. Pete. Evidently, he cheated on her and there's a video. Somehow it got sent to Lindsay, I guess a pissed off husband. She's halfway through her pregnancy and blew a fuse. He came home and she started a fight in the front yard, screaming at him and hitting him. The police got called and they both almost ended up getting arrested." Wow. I couldn't think of what else to say. Somehow, I kept a straight face. "Does she have a temper like that when you guys were together?" "No, I wouldn't have thought she'd be violent, but I do find it ironic. I never got that mad at her when she left." Epilogue. The next several months were pretty normal. I was credited with facilitating some of the success of a couple of programs at work and moved into another position. I also met a guy who worked for one of the contractors. Denny has a sailboat on Chesapeake Bay and has taken me out a couple of times. I think this could be serious. Will and the team at work have received another grant to continue developing the project, and it looks like a winner. And he's met a nice woman nearby. The real surprise was what happened yesterday, Saturday. Will was home for once and I was getting ready for a date with Denny, and the doorbell rang. 3 guesses who was at the door and the first 2 don't count. Okay, it was Lindsay. Hi Will, may I come in?" She sounded subdued. After Will got over the shock of seeing her, he invited her in. I had wandered in from the kitchen and was shocked at her appearance. Frankly, she looked like hell. I almost felt sorry for her. I was standing off to the side and Will said, "You remember Christy?" Lindsay nodded and then gave me another look for just a second, like maybe she had seen me somewhere, but the moment passed. I don't know if you heard, but Peter and I split up. He was cheating on me and now I'm getting divorced. I was pregnant and the stress made me go into early labor. I had a preemie, but she's doing well. Basically, my life is shit now. I've been in therapy and it's helping. Some. I felt like I needed to apologize to you for everything. I was selfish and narcissistic, and I resented you for working so hard. When Peter started paying attention to me and I saw how easy life would be with him, I fell for his bullshit, and I didn't acknowledge how good I had it with you. She paused. I hope you can forgive me. Will stood there speechless for a second. Lindsay, I hated you for a long time, and I couldn't understand how someone I loved could hurt me so badly. But I saw how my actions contributed to the breakdown of our marriage. It doesn't excuse your behavior, but I'm not blameless. So, yeah, I forgive you. Lindsay smiled a little, reached up and kissed Will on the cheek, and said thank you. She turned to leave and then looked back at me and said, "You've turned out to be a very beautiful woman. I wish I had gotten to know you better when we first met." Will closed the door behind her and we looked at each other in disbelief. Wonders never cease. And that's it for today's story, friends. If you enjoyed today's story, leave a like and comment before you leave. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss any video. Goodbye for now and I'll see you in the next video.